first. Voila. We also then need to start the live stream. Does the live stream go? Is it not?
Yeah, it's going now.
Fine, it's going. So.
Okay. Well, Noswaith, good evening, everybody. Croeso and welcome to the Standards Committee, Monday, the 2nd of March. Lovely to see you all here. We've got 3 members of the Standards Committee here in the chamber. So we've got Mark Morgan and we've got Councillor Roz Griffiths as well, and myself, Julia Hughes, the Chair of the Standards Committee. And joining us online, we have Councillor Teresa Carberry. I have apologies from Councillor Ian Hodge. We've got Councillor Anthony Rem. We also have David Davis. And I'm just checking, yes, we've got Jacqueline Guest as well with us this evening, and Jill Murgatroyd. And then you might notice there's another person. We also have Kim Brooks. So welcome to the meeting, Kim. Kim is the Senior Manager, Business Support and School Governance, and she's going to present one of the papers for us this evening. So warm welcome to you.
Diolch.
Croeso. So just can I ask you all to make sure that your mobile phones are switched off or on silent, if you would, and any background noise is kept to a minimum. And if you wouldn't mind muting your microphones and only unmuting when you would like to speak, so it saves any interference in the meeting, any electronic interference. If you wish to speak, do either use the electronic hand raise or raise your hand, and I'm sure the staff here will help me if I don't spot anybody. Remember, if you could keep your cameras on unless there's any connectivity issue, which means you have to switch them off as well, please. Final reminder, if we do go into a part 2 within this meeting, could you make sure that no one is with you in the room or within earshot, if possible as well, please, it's important. Thank you very much. So you should have all received the papers for this evening's meeting, and we've got agenda item 1, the apologies, which is Ian Hodge. I don't think there's anybody else. No. Can I also say in the room we've got the monitoring officer, Gareth here, Gareth Owens, and we've also got just give me the correct title.
Legal Services Manager.
Just so I get it absolutely right. Legal Services Manager as well. So, Croeso, welcome. Thank you. So that's Matthew Powell with us as well. So, can I first of all then take us on to item 2, which is our declarations of interest. You've all had the papers, you've had the opportunity to have a look. Are there any items that you feel you need to declare an interest on, please, this evening? So I can see David Davis indicating. David, would you like to come in? You're on mute at the moment, sorry.
Yes, just potentially a declaration of interest, but I'm sure I can be advised by Gareth in terms of I am a school governor. This relates to item number 8 on the agenda. Well, I am a school governor, but it's a school in Denbighshire rather than Flintshire. But I'd like some clarification from the monitoring officer as to whether I need to make a declaration or not. Thank you.
Thank you for that. I'll pass you over to the monitoring officer.
So Chair, paragraph 12 of the code gives exemptions for people who are school governors. It says that it is only ever a personal interest unless we're debating the particular school of which one is a school governor. Now that's for people who are governors of a school within the county. So clearly there's a very broad exemption for people who are governors within the county. For those who are outside of the county, it's not even an interest, because clearly we are not debating anything that would have any impact upon the school of which David is a governor.
Thank you. Thanks for that clarification, David. Thanks for bringing it up. So hopefully that clarifies it. Thank you. And then I think I've got someone else wants to come in. Councillor Wren, Councillor Anthony Wren, please.
Yeah, thank you then. A personal interest because I'm a governor at Kynant or Brookfield School in Connors Quay.
Lovely. Thank you for that one, Councillor Ryan. Anybody else? Declarations of interest? Not seeing anybody indicating. Can I just remind you all then that if something does... Oh, 1 second. I can see Councillor Teresa Carberry as well. Councillor Carberry.
Thank you, Chair. I'm a governor as well, but I didn't think I had to declare it under the Article 12 thing. Thank you.
So that'll be a personal one as well then, Councillor Carberry. Yeah. Lovely, thank you very much. Not seeing any more hands. So just to remind you all, if anything does come up during the meeting where you think the discussion or the area we're moving to relates to something I actually might have an interest in, please do declare it during the meeting. Thank you very much. So can I move us on to the minutes then? You should have those in your pack, which will be on pages 5 to 8. You might be aware that we haven't got the timings on the agenda, so I'm hoping to give you the approximate timings as we go through this evening. Apologies that we didn't get them printed on the agenda prior to the meeting. So 5 or so minutes just to go over these minutes. So what I'd like to do first is just go through them all for accuracy, if you wouldn't mind. And I'm going to give the page number that they're in the pack. So page 5 for accuracy, page 6, page 7. I'm not seeing anybody indicating anything on accuracy. So can I have someone to move that they're a correct set of minutes, please? I can see Mark Morgan, thank you very much. And a seconder, I can see Councillor Teresa Carberry. Can I just check with David Davis, first of all? Is your hand up for an accuracy?
Sorry, I pressed the wrong button. Sorry, Chair.
No, don't be sorry, not a problem at all. So can I just see a show of hands then that we accept those minutes as a correct record? Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you very much. So can I move back on to matters arising? Anything on page 5? Nobody indicating. Page 6? No, can't see anybody. Page 7? Can't see anybody indicating, but I have something under number 48, which is, it was agreed that the Chief Officer Governance would contact the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales to chase progress on a complaint that has remained under investigation since May 2024. So I'll hand over to the Chief Officer Governance just to give us an update on that. Thank you.
So, Chair, when you asked me that question, or when I was answering that question in your email about the agenda today, I answered it this morning and said, well, I asked the Ombudsman's office and I didn't get any, I was none the wiser at the end of the conversation, essentially, because they won't pin themselves down to precise details, but I did have the outcome letter today. We have an ethical liaison or an ethical update report, an ethical complaints update report in June, and it will be reported as part of that.
Thank you very much. So that will come to us in June. So it's good to see some of these aged cases are starting to make their way through the process, isn't it? Thank you. So anything else on page 7 from anybody? Nope, not seeing anything. So can I move us on to item 4, which is urgent matters as agreed by the chair? I haven't had any urgent matters notified to me. However, we haven't got a section on the minutes, on the agenda, which talks about feedback from any observations of meetings, because of course we've mainly finished our cycle. However, I did attend a Flintshire County Council meeting on the 27th of January 2026. So I thought I'd just give you a quick overview, feedback from that meeting. So as I said, it was on 27th of January. It was 5 hours and 15 minutes. It was a 10:30 to 12:30 and a 1:20 to a 4:35 meeting. There were 52 members present, I think it was quite difficult to count because, of course, you've got numerous people in the chamber and joining remotely as well. And there were a number of members of the public present. Again, it was difficult to count, but approximate could be about 15, but there were quite a few. Declarations of interest were invited, and expressions of interest were given. And how many declarations of interest were made? Well, the monitoring officer gave a statement of declarations relating to council tenants and town and community councillors, and stated that that interest would be recorded on their behalf centrally. And there was a query on an interest, and the monitoring officer confirmed in that case it wasn't needed. So the declarations were clear in setting out what the interest was. And did members declare interests acting in accordance? Well, they were personal only, so they didn't have to leave the meeting for those particular interests.
And there was somebody as well, Chair, wasn't there, who queried partway through the meeting whether she needed to revise her interest.
So I'll just pass you over now, because there was someone partway through the meeting who I haven't recorded, but the monitoring officer does remember that, and I'll just pass you over to him for that clarification.
So we were debating an issue, I can't remember what the issue was, but one of the councillors did say, oh, hang on a minute, if we're talking about this, I need to declare an interest, didn't she, partway towards the end of the meeting? So they were live to how the debate might have moved or might have appeared to be something other than they initially thought.
Thank you for that. So just a few matters, additional notes or explanation or expansion on the matters. So, as I said, I attended in person for that particular meeting, having observed the webcast of the meetings on the 3rd of the 12th, 2025, which continued on the 18th of the 12th, 2025. And so I attended the January meeting because I had strong concerns about some of the behaviours exhibited and the way in which members of the public would perceive this, and the impact it could have on the public confidence and trust of their elected councillors. Something on in terms of environment, for any members of the public or others sitting on the side seating of the chamber, it was very difficult to hear the top table and any council officers speaking in the chamber, and I have made the monitoring officer aware of that. It is a bit of a problem. There was one notice of motion where the result of the vote was stated by the monitoring officer to the chair, but not repeated by the chair. So I had no idea of the result and I couldn't hear it. But I do believe that people who were actually in the body of the chamber could actually hear that result. Additionally, some councillors who speak, who are quietly spoken, and people who are tall, because they're further away from their microphones, of course, when they stand to speak, can't be heard clearly despite their microphones being on. I did note that throughout the meeting there was an undertone of tension, and particularly throughout the councillor questions and notice of motion items on the agenda, there were some pointed comments which were of a nature to try and elicit strong reactions from councillors being criticised and to bait others by referral to areas not pertinent to the matters in hand. And on quite a few occasions, the chair intervened and warned councillors about their behaviours and deviation from business being discussed. And the chair now has the opportunity to mute the microphones of councillors who do that and persistently won't adhere to the proper professional standards that are expected of people within the chamber and within such meetings. And the idea is to stop their input and to get them back onto track. When one particular councillor contributed, there was general noise and rumbles across the chamber and interruptions from many councillors from other groups, and the chair had to call for order on a few occasions. The chair also had to stop councillors from having side conversations on a few occasions, and other councillors who were speaking stopped speaking when side conversations and comments interrupted their contributions. The item on review of political balance attracted much debate and disagreement, with mumbles, side conversation, points of order, warnings from the chair, heated contributions, etc. And much debate about groups that do not do not provide members to sit on committees they've been allocated membership of, which can lead to quorum issues. At one point in the meeting, when the chair had moved to the vote, a councillor stood up and tried to speak and did not agree with the chair and raised his voice, which I felt was somewhat disrespectful to the chair. I won't say the example, but one councillor used an example to illustrate a point which I didn't think was an appropriate example to actually use. And I think councillors need to be quite careful when they are using examples, that they are politically correct examples to use. The monitoring officer apologised re the process during the council meetings in December 25 and acknowledged that on reflection his department could have handled some things differently, but it was an emerging, live emerging picture that was going on in December. There was mention of whipping via WhatsApp to influence the way group members were to vote. For me, it wasn't a meeting of exemplary behaviour, but much better than the 2 meetings I observed in December 2025. So I don't know if there's any comments or queries on that feedback at all. Hopefully it's a true representation of what I saw as a member of public would see it. David Davis, you've got your hand up. Thanks.
Yes, thank you. Just out of curiosity, were you formally introduced as chair of the Standards Committee, or were you there and seen by members to be just there as a member of the public?
I'm trying to recall. I don't think I was formally introduced. I can see the monitoring officer shaking his head. I do. A lot of the councillors are aware of who I am because I have been to their meetings before, but no, I wasn't formally introduced as a member of the Standards Committee. No, I wasn't.
Okay.
Anybody else got any comments or queries? David, is that a legacy hand? Yes, it's gone. Thank you. Anybody else? No, not seeing anybody else. So that was the feedback from that meeting, and I'm assuming the monitoring officer will feed some of that back to the appropriate people in the council.
I was going to ask, Chair, what points do you want fed back? Because normally it's the committee that decides what points it feeds back in relation to your visit.
Yeah, the monitoring officer is quite right. We do usually think about the points that were raised and what we would like to feed back to the council. So anybody like to comment on what you feel are areas that should be fed back? Councillor Carberry.
Thank you, Chair. Julia, the point you made about suitable examples, I think that needs to be mentioned, using a suitable example or discussing it. I also think we need to reiterate that people should be quiet while people are talking, and there shouldn't be conversations going on around the room. It's very off-putting. Thank you.
Thank you for that, Councillor Carberry. Are people comfortable with that? Can I just see a show of hands if you're comfortable with that suggestion for that to be fed back? Yeah, I'm seeing hands everywhere. Okay, so that's a couple of points there. And then I'm seeing Councillor Wren. Would you like to come in?
Yes, please. Perhaps the introduction that wasn't made at the time that a member of the Standards Committee was in the council meeting at the time may have made others in the meeting think twice about their behaviour as they're going along.
So there's a point that perhaps when a member of the Standards Committee does visit one of the committees, perhaps they should be introduced. That's the suggestion. I have to say that it isn't part of our role to go to the meetings as a deterrent, in inverted commas, either, to try and get better behaviours, but I know where you're coming from. So would people be comfortable if it's a suggestion that if a member of the Standards Committee is visiting any committee or subcommittee, that we just make sure that they're introduced to the members? So somebody's shaking their head as a no. Jill, do you want to come in just to
Thanks, Chair. I agree with your observation, Chair, that I don't think our role is to be seen to be there as a deterrent. I think there's better value from us observing the meeting in its typical stroke natural state. Having said that, if the etiquette is that any observers are introduced, then in the way that you have done with this meeting, then that's another matter. But specifically to single out an observer from the Standards Committee, I don't think is helpful for the purposes of what we're keen to achieve. Thank you.
Thank you for that viewpoint. Could I have other people's opinions on that, please? What you feel? I'll have to switch off for you. So, Councillor Ross-Griffiths, please.
Perhaps councillors need reminding of their duties and the responsibilities. They have to be professional. And if people are watching that online, which I think a lot of people do, it's not giving a very good professional outcome of what Flintshire County Council is like. I mean, there's enough aggravation going on Facebook about Flintshire County Council, and I just don't think it helps the situation when councillors are not adhering to code of conduct, perhaps, and should know how to conduct themselves within the chamber.
Thank you, Councillor Ross-Griffiths. Can I ask you then, do you feel that we should be announced that we're there, or we shouldn't?
No, I think we should be there as observers, as a member of the public, because I think, again, if we advise the members that somebody is there, then perhaps it's not a true reflection of behaviour.
Thank you. Thanks for that opinion. Jacqueline Guest, would you like to come in?
Yes, thanks, Chair. No, I was just going to agree with the comments that have been made. I think if we're there, we need to see it as the public would see it.
Okay.
So I personally don't think that you should be advised that standards committees are there.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else got any opinions one way or the other? So I'll just have a show of hands then to say the feel I'm getting mainly, but it might not be everybody, so we'll just take a vote on it, is that we shouldn't be announced, that we should just be there as if we were a member of the public, just turning up to the meeting to observe. So do you agree that we should just be there without being announced? So just as a member of the public, if you agree with that, could you show your hands, please? That we should. Okay, so we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Mark Morgan, are you? No, okay. I actually agree, which would be 7. And then can I just check, Mark, are you against or abstaining?
Sorry, Chair, I was just looking through my notes here. I was trying to find, we used to have a script. We do have a script that we used to read at the commencement of any meetings, which I think clarifies all of this and it shows a bit of transparency. I just haven't got it to hand.
Yeah, you are quite right. We have a script. I've tended to use that not at council meetings, but at town and community council meetings, where there wasn't such an understanding of why we were there and what our purpose was, compared perhaps with county council members. But at the moment, we've had the vote there, and it's voted that we shouldn't be announced, that we should be just as a member of the public. But thank you for that observation, Mark. And you are quite right. There is a script that we have been using. So are there any other areas from the feedback that I gave that you think should be fed back to the council? I'm thinking there needs to be something about making sure that they respect the chair, and actually when the chair does say to them to go back onto a particular point, or that it's gone off a point and it needs to go to something else, they do need to actually respect the chair, because I did observe the chair had to intervene on a number of occasions, and I didn't feel that was appropriate. So how do people feel about something going back in that way, about respecting the chair and the chair's directions, if you like. If you're comfortable with that, could you show your hands, please? Yeah, I'm seeing that everywhere. Mark, are you? Yeah, that one as well. David Davis, do you want to come in?
Sorry, Chair. For some reason, my hand is raised involuntarily.
Oh, that's okay.
So,
That's okay.
I'll revert to putting my hand up rather than using anything electronically.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you. So, okay, if there are no other points then, can't see anybody indicating. So we'll move from that, and thank you all for your contributions there, and I'll leave that to the monitoring officer to feed that back to the appropriate people that need that information.
That'll be all councillors.
So that will be to all councillors. Thank you very much. So let's move on then to item 5, which is dispensations. And I've got no time against it because we have no dispensations this evening. So I'm going to move us on from item 5 to our items for decision. So first item for decision is item 6. And you should find that on pages 9 to 26 of your pack. And it's the review of the Flintshire standards. So what we need to do is actually to review the expected standards of behaviour contained within the Flintshire standard local resolution procedure. And I'm going to pass you over to the Chief Officer Governance to take us through that paper, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Just call the paper up. So, Chair, this, the Flintshire Standard, as you recall, came to the committee twice last year. And then in November, it went to the Constitution and Democratic Services Committee, in theory, for onwards transmission to council, and never got that far for a couple of reasons. The principal reason why it did not get any further than that was because in error, all of the tracked changes had been accepted, so nobody could see or easily see the changes that had been highlighted to the document, and the committee wanted those reinstated. So I was going to, and I have reinstated them for the purposes of this evening's meeting. You will see that also a couple of comments were made at the Constitution and Democratic Services Committee. Relatively minor comments, but there had been a big debate. There was a big debate at the committee about whether a document needs to go back to the originating committee when any changes are made to it. I referred to that within the meeting chair as a potential doom loop, because we might never get anywhere if that were to be the case. But as the matter had already been deferred, I thought we would bring it here so that you can view the two comments. At the time, I was fairly relaxed about both of them, but since I have reflected on one and changed my view. So the two comments that were made was that firstly, the expression, the positive obligations about treating people with respect should be reframed into do not treat people with disrespect, which is fine because there's a long way between disrespect. On the continuum of behaviours, there's a long way between treating people respectfully and being very nice to them all the time and not treating them disrespectfully. And actually the code says, you know, do not be disrespectful towards people. So fine, quite happy for that to be phrased as do not treat people with disrespect, because you can treat people neutrally, which technically doesn't meet the definition of treating them with respect. But what we're concerned about, obviously, is that we shouldn't see disrespect. The second comment was to suggest that we should exclude or should remove the final bullet point at the bottom of page 13, which reads that members must exclude officers from the scope of political remarks. And you will see reference in the report to why I think that actually should be retained on reflection. We had a meeting some years ago, a county council meeting, where it felt very bad-tempered at the time, and there were a large number of comments within the meeting, and then subsequently about behaviour within the meeting, about feeling that a watershed had been passed, and not wanting to repeat meetings in that manner in future. And that resulted in a review and an uprating of the Flintshire Standard, and specifically the inclusion of this comment about excluding officers from the scope of political remarks, because there were comments within the meeting about financial mismanagement, which were intended to be about political choices made about spending, but members don't do financial management. Officers do financial management. We do budgetary management. And so a number of the accountants in particular were very offended by the remark, even though it had not been the intention of the maker of the comment to include them. The maker of the comment had been squarely aiming those comments at the cabinet and not at officers. And so we put in the positive obligation to exclude officers from political remarks to avoid the opportunity where, in making a comment and without thinking about it, one might appear to be including officers within a criticism that is solely aimed at a political opponent. And by putting the obligation in there, we force people to think again. To think either, how do I phrase this so that it is clear that my target is a political target? Or to remind them to say, look, I'm going to make this comment. I'm not including officers, specifically not including officers in this, and then go on, and go and say what they wanted to say. But that was an important point that comes out of lived experience within the council. So one suggested change, I think is probably okay. The other one, I don't think it is, but very much a matter for yourselves as the committee chair. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you very much for going through that. Prior to us just asking any questions, can I just check out a matter of accuracy on the paper, if it's possible, just in case? I might be wrong, but on page 24, number 12, it talks about, in such circumstances, it will be the party who is a single individual, either a sole complainant or single subject member, who will decide if they're willing to do with all matters together. Would that be to deal with all matters together?
It should be, yeah, to do.
So that's on page 24, and then that's repeated. Sorry, that's repeated somewhere else as well.
Well, one's the track changes and one's the clean copy chair.
Oh, well, there we are. So it's, yeah. So it's just an incorrect word there, just to make sure that it's clear exactly what we've got. So can I open up for comments then, please, or observations or questions from anybody on the committee? Mark Morgan, thank you.
Just to say, Chair, that I think the monitoring officer has provided sound rationale for why that change or proposed change should not happen. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. Anybody else got any comments or queries? I'm not seeing anybody at the moment. I'll just give time for you to have a think about that, and perhaps I could ask a question just for clarification then on page 18. It's in stage 2 of the procedure, and it takes us through stage 2 of the procedure, and it talks of the meeting being held between the complainant, the member against who the complaint is made, the chief executive, the leader of any relevant political group, that is to say the subject member's group leader, and if the complaint is a member, her group leader. And it talks about if the complaint is an officer. And I just wondered, well, what if the complaint is actually about a group leader? or from a group leader. I just wondered what would happen in that circumstance. I'll ask the monitoring officer. Or maybe I'm being confused.
No. So stage 1 of the process is complainant and complained about member. Stage 2 is an escalation. Stage 1 hasn't worked. Stage 2 is the escalation. To see if by bringing in the group leader and bringing in the chief executive, we can resolve the matter any further. And that reflects the group leader's duty around trying to ensure that group leader's obligation to ensure that members comply with the code. I mean, there isn't anybody that supervises or has any responsibility for group leaders. The intention is not to put them there simply to hold the hand of the member and to provide them with comfort or moral support. The intention is because they're there with an obligation to see if they can break some sort of deadlock or get the member to see things differently. You could decide, Chair, if the committee could decide if it wished that, even group leaders have the right to be accompanied, but by that point, like I said, that's not the intention of including them at that point. The point is to escalate it from me up to the chief and the group leaders so that the member concerned and the complainant go, oh, right, okay, this is serious now. Yeah, we've had it at one level and it's bringing in that additional extra level, presumably of skill and mediatory ability, perhaps a little bit of pressure around trying to reach an outcome, whilst still obviously being consensual, but, a little bit more compulsion.
So then, can I take that comment back to stage 1 then? So what if it's in stage 1, a group leader that the complaint is about? What would happen in that process?
It would just be the group leader. It would be stage 1 is the outset. Can we resolve this?
So it would be the group leader and whoever complained together with the.
Well, you've got two possibilities, haven't you, Chair? Firstly, the complainant is the group leader. They're the complainant. They come along, they make their case. It's a mediatory process. They make their case. The second possibility is that the person complained about is a group leader. Well, again, they come along. We can approach a group leader. You can ask a group leader to apologise if you've been offended by their behaviour in the same way that you can ask an ordinary member. In that regard, their role there is pretty much in relation, most likely to be in relation to their behaviour as an individual rather than in regard to their behaviour as a group leader. If their behaviour is in regard to their behaviour as a group leader, if the complaint is in relation to their behaviour as a group leader, well, again, they're the only person that you can talk to at that point. The question becomes really, do you want to say a group leader can bring their deputy group leader with them at stage 2 if the complaint is about them? You might get some extra insight. You might get a different perspective from a deputy leader. You don't have the same, hierarchical responsibility for them. But this is intended to be a mediatory process. So, and it's intended for the participants to gain some insight into how their behaviour might have been different. And in that regard, allowing a group leader to bring along a deputy group leader to stage 2, because of course stage 1 won't have worked. So to get to stage 2, it's possible that, having another head might help at that point.
Thank you for explaining how that might work there. Okay. Jill Murgatroyd, did you want to come in?
Thank you, Chair. Just 2 observations. Firstly, I agree with the monitoring officer's rationale, the comments about the second point that Mark Morgan referred to, and I think it makes eminent sense to keep that statement in. And then secondly, picking up, Chair, your observations about a group leader, Personally, I don't think we need a sledgehammer to crack a nut in this particular case. It's extremely unlikely, given how few leaders we have of different political parties. And I think the proposed wording is on page 18, isn't it? The paragraph that the monitoring officers just referred to. Is it 8? I can't read it. Is it 8 point whatever it is, that final paragraph at the bottom of that sort of top section, the purpose of this meeting? Because if deemed necessary, then there can be sort of other people, the chief exec can call on the monitoring officer to assist, or the deputy monitoring officer. I think that's sufficient, whether we're talking about stage 1 or stage 2. And personally, I don't think we need to wordsmith it any further in terms of that unlikely scenario of it being linked to a group leader. I think that additional paragraph is sufficient. Should it not be possible for both the complainant and the person whom the concerns have been raised about cannot come together without anyone else.
Thank you. Thanks for that observation, Jill. That's really useful. Anybody else? Mark Morgan.
So, Chair, just one more observation, and it's just a matter of consistency, really. On page 14, last but one paragraph, he or she has been changed to they. Should that then follow through on page 18 in the top 3 paragraphs where it still shows his, her? Should they become their? Next paragraph them, next paragraph them. Just for consistency.
Yeah, it's a consistency. I'll just hand over to the monitoring officer for his observation on that. Thank you.
We have tried to draft it, Chair, so that we don't have gendered language in there. I'll just try and remove it for the sake of consistency.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Thanks for that, Mark. Anybody else? No, so I'm not seeing anybody else indicating. So we've got the recommendation on page 9, which is that the change recommended by the Constitution and Democratic Services Committee, shown in Appendix 1, is approved. So can I have somebody to move that, please? So I can see Councillor Rhodes-Griffiths, and seconded by Jackie Guest. Thank you very much. And can I see a show of hands if people are happy for that? Are you just checking if Mark Morgan's?
So we're approving the first but not the second?
So it's the one, sorry, I'll just be totally clear for everybody. So we're approving the change where it says do not show disrespect to each other or officers, and that's a change. And the second one is that we keep in exclude officers from the scope of political remarks. So, yeah, so that's Mark as well, so that's unanimous as well for that one. Thank you very much. So can I move us then on to item 7, which is the rolling review of the Members' Code of Conduct. And you should find that on pages 27 to 68. We've allocated 30 to 40 minutes for this particular item if it's needed. And what I'll do, I'll hand you over again to the monitoring officer who will take us through this particular paper. Beg your pardon, Legal Services Manager is going to take us through this one, Matthew Powell. Thank you, apologies. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. So the Council has a code of conduct for members. That's based on a prescribed national model code. It can be added to and adapted locally, provided the provisions are no less onerous than the national model code. The Standards Committee keeps the code of conduct under rolling review. to ensure it remains up to date and pertinent. Having a code of conduct, it's mandatory, so that means it remains pertinent. However, there have been changes to the model code upon which it is based. So changes are required to the code of conduct to make sure it remains up to date. The changes to the model code are recent, having been brought about by regulations which took effect on the 5th of January this year, 2026. Those changes are to paragraph 4A of the model code, and paragraph 4A is the requirement for members to carry out their duties with due regard to the principle that there should be equality of opportunity for all people. The model code used to go on to say that this is regardless of their gender, race, disability, sexual orientation, and their age. The model code now reads that it's regardless of their protected characteristics or socio-economic circumstances. So rather than list those characteristics, it links the requirements to the Equality Act 2010. The purpose of that is to ensure that the model code captures all of the statutory protected characteristics and any amendments that may be made to the Equality Act 2010 so that it future-proofs the code of conduct. The Equality Act provides that the following characteristics are protected characteristics: age, disability, gender reassignment, marriage and civil partnership, pregnancy and maternity, race, religion or belief, sex, and sexual orientation. The Council had already adopted all of those in its code of conduct apart from the characteristics of pregnancy and maternity and belief. The code of conduct currently includes gender in its list of characteristics. However, that is not a protected characteristic within the Equality Act 2010. The code of conduct must be no less onerous than the model code, but it can add to it. So it is open to members to retain gender within the code of conduct. The other change that the new model code provides for is that members must carry out their duties and responsibilities with due regard to the principle that there should be equality of opportunity for all people regardless of their social economic circumstances. That's to align with the socio-economic duty in section 1 of the Equality Act 2010. So the recommendations in the report, which contain an amended code of conduct at Appendix 2, are to undertake the rolling review of the members' code of conduct and to consider and advise the Council on necessary revisions to that code of conduct to reflect the recent legislative changes. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Thank you very much for the overview there and for taking us through the detail of the changes and the potential decision that we can make in terms of the term gender within this. So can I pass you over to the Chief Officer Governance first of all, who's going to just give a bit more detail about the term gender and some of the background and the implications of taking it out or leaving it in.
Thank you, Chair. So, yes, the use of the word gender. The code originally said gender because the code was passed in 2008, 2 years before the Equality Act was passed, and it has not been significantly revised since. So, sex is about whether you are male or female, whether you are born with the physical characteristics of a man or a woman. Gender is about whether you adopt behaviours, styles of dress that are perceived to be feminine or masculine, traditionally perceived to be feminine and masculine. So that assumes, of course, from the very get-go, that there is a way that women dress and that there is a way that men dress, and that there's a way that men behave and that there is a way that women behave. So gender is itself based on some concepts and some stereotypes. Now, of course, there are people born physically male, born physically female, although that in itself is a bit of a spectrum, but born physically male, born physically female, who choose to reject societal constraints around how they should behave or dress. And so you will see men that choose to dress in what have traditionally been regarded as women's clothes and vice versa. You will also see men wearing jewellery or makeup or nail varnish or whatever that are traditionally associated with women rather than with the masculine, rather than with men. Now, the thing is, as a public sector, because we serve everybody and we want to serve everybody equally, we have tended to be respectful of gender as well as sex. And you just don't discriminate against people on any basis, whether it's, whatever. Just, treat people fairly and try and help people and ensure that people achieve equality. There are a group of people within society, though, or there are people within society who do not recognise gender. And they say that sex is protected, but gender is not. And so, for example, if you have a man who identifies as a woman, has not been through gender reassignment, so isn't, formally on a transition from one sex to another, but who just simply identifies as female and wishes, therefore, to use female changing rooms or changing facilities or toilets or whatever. Those people, gender critical people, say that that should not be allowed, and that the legislation does not require us to permit those people into female-only spaces. And very often this is addressed in terms of protecting the sanctity and or safety of female-only spaces from the physical intrusion of the male gaze and or male actions, because there are fears that men might pose as a different gender in order to obtain access to female-only spaces for sexual gratification, whether that be in terms of a sexual assault or simple voyeurism. I say simple voyeurism, nothing simple about voyeurism, but whether you, as either voyeurism or sexual assault. And that is a protected view. I will be very clear about that. Having a view that sex is sex, and that you're born man or woman and you can't change that by the way you dress or the way you behave, is a protected view. And there is case law to that effect. So if we keep gender in the code, we progress the culture that we've been working towards, in that we don't want to be exclusionary and we want to be inclusionary. We don't want to discriminate against anybody. We want to ensure that everybody, however they choose to dress, behave, or whatever, is treated equally and helps to achieve equality. We progress one of our aims, but we bring a risk that we might be overextending ourselves. And if we were ever, for example, because we say we will be equal to everybody, whether on the basis of their gender, if we ever wanted to discipline somebody for saying just putting a skirt on doesn't make you a woman, if we tried to discipline them for that, we would be breaching the gender critical person's right to hold the belief that sex is important. So, comme ci, comme ça. There's benefits, but there's also risks, Chair. Yeah, as I said, we progress our aims, we progress that belief that everybody should be treated fairly and equally, however they choose to dress, whatever their identity, which is probably an understandable perspective, but we have to be careful then not to let that go too far, so that we then potentially put at risk legally protected rights such as sex. And in particular, as I say, typically that's around the protection of female-only spaces, but no reason why it would have to be. It could work the other way around. You might have a woman who wants to dress as a man simply for the purposes of going in and conducting either voyeurism or sexual assaults on men in male-only spaces. It works both ways round, but like I say, typically the proponents are around protecting female-only spaces. So, both pros and cons, Chair.
Thank you for giving that additional explanation around that one. So just to remind you, there are two things about this paper that we need to be thinking about. One is to be thinking about the gender area, and the other one is the socio-economic circumstances. So the gender one first, because we've just had that particular explanation. Would anybody like to raise a comment, a question, or have a viewpoint on what you feel we should be thinking about or what we should do in this instance? Arguments for one way or the other. We've had the balance of the two sides, and that one could make it more difficult for the other. So let's start off with Councillor Wren, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I do like the idea of listing protected characteristics rather than having an exhaustive list that in 12 months' time may be outdated because something else that's come along needs protection. And again, if we've always supported gender and that's no longer on the list of protected characteristics, I don't see why it shouldn't be. Thank you.
Sorry, you don't see why it should or shouldn't be, sorry?
Shouldn't be. We've always protected gender before. Why would we change now?
So your opinion is to have that, the protected characteristics plus gender. That's your opinion. Yeah, you've got a thumbs up there, just to make clear what your opinion is. Thank you. Anybody else like to comment, please, with your feelings on this? Not seeing anybody indicating. Sorry, Mark Morgan, beg your pardon, Mark.
Just very briefly, it takes me back to my previous observation on the previous item. And should I go back on that, and should it be him, her, / their, as opposed to dropping the him, her?
I think we just try and take out gendered language. I try to draft, and it's not always that easy without clumsy language, to avoid the need to use a gendered pronoun at all. But it can sometimes be difficult because you then have to, the complaint of, you talk about the member about whom a complaint has been made, quite a mouthful. It is easier just to say she or he thereafter, rather than always the complaint about whom the member about whom a complaint has been made, or they. We can put she, he, they. I don't mind. I'm relaxed, but we're then starting almost slip back into clumsy language again, clumsy drafting. So if we can avoid the use of pronouns, I'll try to.
Thank you. Are you comfortable with that sort of stance, Mark? Thank you. Jill Murgatroyd, did you want to come in?
Thanks, Chair. Just picking up that last point first, I think it's sensible for simplicity in terms of reading it, not to have gendered language. I think it flows better anyway as well. So talk about sort of them or their or they is fine, and then it sort of minimises the risk of anyone being upset or inadvertently. In terms of the other 2 points, I agree with what Councillor Wren has observed as well, in terms of what the monitoring officer has said, is rather than listing each of the individual protected characteristics, using the wording that's been proposed in the new appendix, and just talking about protected characteristics, really for the reason that Councillor Wren has stated.
Thank you there, Jill. Can I just say, I just want to clarify, if we just do the protected characteristics as a statement, it doesn't include gender now, does it? Am I right? So if you did just say protected characteristics, it wouldn't include gender. So is that what you're suggesting?
No, my mistake. Sorry, it's the second point then, or third point then, is I'm also supportive that we continue in terms of protecting gender for the reasons, the very coherent reasons that have already been described. So I would say protected characteristics plus gender in the way that Councillor Wren has described.
Thank you. Just needed to clarify to make sure. Thank you. Anybody else want to make a comment, observation, support any of the comments made, or ask any questions? Councillor Carberry. Sorry, I totally got that wrong. I looked at the person and called to somebody else. Beg your pardon. Councillor Ros Griffiths.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, I mean, I think that we should protect it with gender as well, but I think each case would need to be dealt with on its merit. I mean, you wouldn't want to offend somebody that was, you know, calling themselves a male or a female, and I think it does depend on the circumstances and each individual situation as it arises. It's a difficult one, isn't it, for everybody to get their head round and to understand that you don't want to upset people, but everybody's got to live their lives. So it's I'd say it's an ongoing situation. I think each individual case as it arose would need to be dealt with in that manner.
Thank you. So could I ask you just a supplementary then? Are you suggesting that it should have the wording of the protected characteristics plus gender, or just the protected characteristics?
No, with the plus gender as well.
Okay, thank you. Just to clarify, just to make sure that we're... anybody else? So what I'm going to do, because I'm not seeing anybody else indicating, I'm just going to take a vote on this particular one to double check first before we look at the socio-economic circumstances one, which is part of the overall one. So if what I think I'm hearing generally, but I haven't heard from everybody, is that there's a swell towards including the protected characteristics plus gender rather than taking the gender out. So if people agree with that, could I see a show of hands, please? Okay, so I am seeing everybody. So that's what we've agreed for that particular area. Thank you very much for that. Then the other area that we've got to think about is the socio-economic circumstances. Just to clarify, is that to include that in the statements, because it wasn't previously? Can I just double check? Thank you. Thank you, Matt Powell.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, yes, that's right. So that addition comes from the changes to the model code. So the code of conduct locally can't be any less onerous than that. So that change would need to be adopted.
Right. Okay, thank you. So Councillor Wren, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you. Sorry, when I was talking about the protected characteristics, I also meant the socio-economic as well.
So to include that, to put the socio-economic in as well. Yeah. Okay. Thanks for clarifying there. Sorry, I didn't catch that before. Jill Murgatroyd as well. Jill.
Thanks, Chair. Yes, I agree that we should add in the socio-economic circumstances. I just wanted to check, though, I may have misunderstood the Equality Act and picking up Councillor Wren's observations there. My understanding, but I may be completely wrong, is that socio-economic circumstances are not actually within the Equality Act, which is why we, given the model code has now added it in, that's why we're also going to add it in. But I may have sort of missed a trick there, because if it is expressly in the Equality Act, then I agree. I don't think we need to sort of add it in sort of separately. But for some reason, I thought that it wasn't in there, but I may have missed that.
Thanks. Thank you for asking that. I'm going to revert to Matt Powell to just help us along with that one. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. No, it's not a protected characteristic, and within Section 4 of the Equality Act, which is how the model code now defines what protected characteristics are. However, there is a socio-economic duty in Section 1 of the Equality Act 2010. And that requires councils in Wales, when making decisions of a strategic nature about how to exercise functions, to have due regard to the desirability of exercising them in a way that's designed to reduce inequalities of outcome, which result from socio-economic disadvantage. So the explanatory memorandum for the rationale for that change is so the model code now captures the requirements of Section 1 of the Equality Act 2010, but no, it's not a listed protected characteristics within Section 4, hence why it's referred to separately.
Thank you for that. I'm just going to bring in the monitoring officer as well. Thank you.
And I don't believe the socio-economic duty has been introduced in England. Whilst it's within the Equality Act, I don't believe it's ever been implemented in the 16 years since the Equality Act was passed. It's only been implemented in Wales, and that might be why the two are in different sections, because there were different perceptions about whether they'd be implemented together, and whether you could get everything through, under Section 4, or whether you needed to separate one out because that had a narrower appeal than Section 4. But to be blunt, to be clear, the amendment to the code includes socio-economic. It is part of the model code, so we can't exclude it. This isn't a choice.
Oh, right. Thank you. So there's no need for us to vote on it in a way because we have to include it. Is that what you're saying?
That's what the national, you might want to change it, you might want to say something else around it, but we must include socio-economic. You can be more onerous, you can't be less onerous.
Thank you. I had misunderstood that. Thank you. Jill Murgatroyd.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Matt, for just confirming what I'd thought that it was in terms of the Equality Act. I'm reassured about that. Yes, I agree. That we need, therefore, to overtly add it in. And even though we're obliged to do it, I think in the interests of transparency, it would be good if we voted on it nevertheless to show, to demonstrate our commitment and support, if that's what our views are. The only other thing to observe is at some point when these relatively minor changes are rolled out or communicated to people, given that there isn't a definition yet, other than the statutory guidance in A More Equal Wales in terms of socio-economic circumstances, I'm not sure if it's possible we can just try and help people understand what's meant by it, given this is a relatively new concept for people. I think it would just be helpful. The more we can do to support people in understanding it, the better, if we decide to vote on this. Thanks.
Thank you. I'll just double check with either Matt Powell or Gareth Owens about adding more explanation to guide people. That's what you're suggesting, isn't it? Just to push socio-economic.
No, I'm not suggesting more guidance in the code. It's in this code itself. It's more about when it's rolled out and communicated. I think we just need to stick to what's being described in the actual the model code of conduct. So I don't think we need to pad ours out anymore, other than just to reflect socio-economic circumstances, but it's how we roll it out and communicate it.
Okay, thank you. Thanks for clarifying that. Thank you. David Davis, did you want to come in?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Just for clarification, our recommendations are going to go back to the Council's Democratic and Constitution Committee. Do they have the final say, or if they don't agree with our recommendations, will it be sent back to us?
I'll just hand over to the monitoring officer to respond to you.
It's not going to come back here for a fourth time, Chair.
Okay.
That's that we know. Otherwise, as I say, we'd be in danger of never making any progress. It would go to County Council.
Thanks, David, for asking that. So we've had clarification on the next bit of the process. Thank you. That's really useful. Has anybody else got anything they want to raise at all? So just for, as Jill said, transparency, even though we're obliged to include socio-economic circumstances, can I see a show of hands of people if you agree to include socio-economic circumstances, please? And I'm seeing everybody for that one as well. Thank you. So just going back to unless anybody's got any more comments before we close this particular item. Councillor Carberry.
Thank you, Chair. Just to say that really we're endorsing the use, endorsing that part of the Code of Conduct. And perhaps that's all that needs to be said, that we voted on it and we've endorsed it.
Thank you. Thank you. That's really useful. So, but in terms of the recommendations, then I want to take us to the recommendations we have on the paper as well now, please, to say, someone moved that we have undertaken the rolling review of the Members' Code of Conduct. So can I have somebody to move that we've done that? Yeah. I'm not going to say your name wrong this time. Councillor Ros Griffiths, thank you. And a seconder, thank you, Teresa Carberry, Councillor Carberry. And can I see a show of hands that we've completed that? Yeah, thank you very much. And following our discussions, we have considered, so this is the other one, and via officers, our recommendation is going to advise the council on necessary revision of the Members' Code of Conduct to reflect the recent legislative changes together with the things that we've agreed this evening. So can I have somebody to move that, please? I can see Jacqueline Guest, thank you. Seconder, Councillor Wren, and a show of hands, if you agree. Yeah, and unanimous again. So thank you very much. Thank you for the preparations on that paper, which was agenda item 7. So can I move us now on to agenda item 8, which is the Code of Conduct for School Governors and the support and resources available. You should find the papers, pages 69 to pages 74 in your pack. And we have the Senior Manager, Business Support and School Governance with us this evening, Kim Brooks, who is going to take us through this paper. Now, some of you might think, why have we got this paper to do with schools? And I'm just going to get the monitoring officer to explain why, as a standards committee, we have something coming to us to do with schools. Thank you.
Because, Chair, it's the remit of the Standards Committee to ensure good standards of behaviour, not only amongst elected councillors, but also school governing bodies. And it's not an area that we cover very often, because traditionally it is left to the local education authority, the LEA, and to scrutiny. But periodically, you get reports from Kim on this. When was the last one, Kim? Was it 6, 8 years ago? A little while.
Yeah.
Lovely, thank you. So just thought I'd give you that rationale, because some of us as a committee weren't here 6 to 8 years ago, and so it might come as a bit of a surprise, even though we do have it in our remit. So I'm going to hand you over to Kim to take us through the paper, if you wouldn't mind, please, Kim. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you for the invitation to speak to you this evening. You know, the days go slow, but the years fly by, and I think it was about 2017 when I last gave an update report, and I think it's more around context and assurance, really, about our role as school governors in terms of, you know, we are carrying out public duties. So I'm only going to pick a couple of comments from the report and then open it up for questions. But as is my wont, you know, I always take the opportunity to thank those of you who are our governors. A lot is asked of governors who are volunteers, and as I understand it, as governors, we are the largest volunteer group in Wales. So we are a sort of significant body. As Gareth has mentioned there at the outset, you know, the legislative requirements for school governors and their code of conduct is enshrined. It is in legislation. It is overseen by ourselves as the local authority. My role in particular in supporting school governors to ensure that where there is a discord, that there shall be harmony. But I just wanted to draw perhaps your attention at 103, 104 of the report. And as governors, our duties are very much prescribed within legislation. Back in 2012-13, Wales Government did introduce a set of legislative requirements for us as governors to make sure that we've got at least the very basics of understanding of our role, and that the governing body themselves is self-regulating in terms of, are we compliant with the regulations, and if we're not, what can we do about it? And at 104 there, I just touched briefly on the disqualification arrangements that exist to governing bodies if we as governors don't complete our statutory training. And I suppose the assurance around that is the local authority has not been made aware of any governor that's been disqualified for not carrying out their statutory training, which they're required to do within a year of their appointment. At 106 of the report, I just referred to the fact that all good governing bodies should be asking all governors to sign, or at least remind them annually, of a code of conduct. And that code of conduct, again, is embedded in the statutory content of the training under the regulations. And they arose, as we're all familiar as public servants, from the Nolan Principles. So there's nothing new to us as governors that we shouldn't be doing in our role as public servants. So the statutory content of school governor training is underpinned by the Nolan Principles. And again, at 108 there, I've not been, as the local authority, not since my last report in 2017, I've not been made aware of any governors, again, under the regulations, that have been disqualified for any breaches of the code of conduct. But again, as the local authority, we do from time to time. It's interesting, we've talked about the code of conduct tonight for members, but from time to time, you know, there is a little bit of casework around, I would say perhaps discord, but perhaps no, over-enthusiastic governors in terms of them understanding their role and their remit. But again, to assure the committee tonight, I've not been made aware since my last report to you of any disqualifications undertaken by school governing bodies whereby they've removed a governor for conduct grounds. So we've had the breach of training regs and the conduct grounds, and I've not been made aware of any. And then at 109, it's again a legislative requirement that we do have statutory representation by school governors on what we call the relevant local authority committee, which is the scrutiny committee. and that member, whilst they're representing the school governance, would have to abide by the local authority standing orders. So I hope, Chair, that sort of perhaps closes the loop on what are we having assurance on, what are we monitoring tonight as you are as the Standards Committee. And of course, there is that direct correlation between, as a governor, being representative on the statutory committees for education. So I just wanted to run through, Chair, those 4 or 5 main points, and then sort of just leave it open now for colleagues to ask any questions. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr. Thank you very much for that, Kim, and for pulling out some salient points for us. So I'm going to open it up, and I've got Councillor Anthony Wren who'd like to come in, please.
Yeah, thank you, Chair. Yeah, just a question to Kim about the 109, the statutory education committees. It mentions 3 parent governors representing primary, secondary and special school phase. 2 of the 3 places are vacant, so therefore only 1 is occupied. Which is occupied and which of the vacant places, and is there a reason why they're vacant?
Thank you, Councillor Wren. Yes, I mean, from time to time, we do put out a circulation to schools saying, oh, would anybody be interested in being a parent governor representative on the scrutiny? It's, again, people lead busy lives. We've just got one now that's primary.
I assume that's Lisa, is it?
Yeah, we say primary, secondary, special, just to try and give equality of opportunity, but the representation has to come from the parent, a serving parent governor, so that sort of closes the numbers down, and we try and have that equality. So, Councillor Wren, it's just we go out to seek recruitment quite regularly, but the last 2 or 3 times that I've submitted, asked for expressions of interest, we've had no expressions of interest back. So it will be back on the agenda, perhaps again ready for the September batch of new parent governors coming in.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Wren. I was actually going to ask about that one as well, because it is difficult, isn't it, when you've got spaces and places which haven't got people in the places to have good discussion and representation as well. So it's good to hear that you're on the case there, and it's going to come back on the agenda. I just wondered if there are any other ways of it just being on an agenda to encourage people to participate. Would there be any other ways or methodologies to actually try and encourage some of those parent governors to actually think about taking part? When you actually go to ask them, is there a good explanation about the time commitment and the types of responsibilities they'd have? I'm assuming there are.
Yes, yeah, it's we do provide a short crib sheet of, you know, what's the level of the time commitment, what their role is, what is their function, what is their duty. We circulate it to schools. We rely on the schools cascading it to their parent governors, and we just keep pitching out, asking for expressions of interest on a fairly regular basis. Historically, we've always struggled to fill the 3. It's some time since we've had 3, a full house, as it were. But yeah, people, and then of course, when they're no longer a parent governor, they can no longer be. So when their term of office as a parent governor has expired, they naturally can no longer. It's coterminous with their term of office as the parent representative.
Thank you for that. I've got David Davis wants to come in.
Yes, thank you. Just a further question to Kim in terms of, is it a legal requirement that it must be a governor parent who's on the committee? Because it does restrict, obviously, your numbers. Could it not be a town or community council representative on the school governor or the LEA representative? Thank you.
No, thank you, Mr. Davis. No, it's a very, very specific requirement under the church and parent regulations. I think I can't remember the year off the top of my head. No, it does have to be an elected, a nominated parent governor. But you're right, it does therefore restrict the pool for recruitment. It's very specific, but thank you.
Thank you for that question, David. Anybody else want to come in? Councillor Rods-Griffiths, thank you.
Yeah, thanks. I finished as a governor in 2013, so this training situation hadn't come into force then. But I'm glad it's there, because I was chair of governors for 27 years and had some hairy moments with some parent governors as well as general governors of school as well. And I think this training would have been a great benefit to those people at that time. And I do welcome the fact that now they have to go through this training process to be able to fully adhere to what the governing body decides. So I welcome it. Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you. Just by way of update, Wales Government are just about to conduct a review of a whole-scale review of the duties of school governors, and part of which will include an update on the training as well. So the statutory training, it's amazing to think that's now 13 years 13 years it's been in, and that, clearly nothing stays still, and that is currently being reviewed. But yes, thank you for those comments, Ms. Griffiths.
Just following on from those comments as well, I was looking at the training, and I was going to say to you, it says that must receive induction training within 12 months of appointment. And it was just crossing my mind, if it wasn't until 11 months, that's a long time to have started in that role and not have had any induction training at all. And I just wondered whether they're thinking of making any movement on that, and perhaps thinking about within the first 6 months, say, or something like that. It's just difficult, isn't it? 12 months is a long time before you have your induction, I would say. What do you think, Kim?
Yes. I mean, that is, as a group collectively of governor support officers, we feed back that sort of the information back to Wales Government. How do you judge the impact of training? The chairs and clerks training, you're right, has that shorter time frame of 6 months, and that does seem to make sense. I think from memory, when it was brought in all that time ago, when we were looking at the regs, developing the regulations back in 2011 and 12, was we have this situation under the regulations that as governors, governing bodies, we're only required to meet once a term. So that there could almost be 6 months between one meeting and the next. So I would hope that anybody that's appointed as a governor would want to do that training as soon as possible, so that you can participate and contribute to as effectively as you can in being a governor. And of course, it's available now, as most things are, digitally. So there's no reason to stop, for them not to do it 24/7. But yes, it's an interesting point there, Chair. And it's something which I'm sure will be being mulled over as we speak. The minister, the education minister, has said that she does want, they do want a report on their desk, I think by the summer term, as to what the regulations could be, but or consideration of the regulations. But of course, it will then be on the long list of things to be looked at after the Senedd elections. So. But we do ask a lot of governors. What they're asked to do is a lot. So again, I'm always open to recruitment for school governors, the largest volunteer group in Wales.
Thank you. Thanks for that. Anybody else got any comments, questions, queries, observations? I'm not seeing anybody indicating. So thank you very much, as I said before, Kim, for coming to the meeting and presenting that to us. Can I take us to the recommendation number 1? and then I want a discussion before we go on to recommendation number 2. So recommendation number 1 is that we are assured by the report. So can I have someone to move that thank you, Councillor Carberry, and seconded by Jacqueline Guest. And can I see a show of hands? Thank you. The second recommendation talks about us commenting on the frequency of future reporting, because as was mentioned at the beginning, most of us have never had one of these reports because it was a long time since it was presented before, and most of us weren't on this committee, if any. So there's a query about how frequent this reporting should be, given that it is part of our duty, isn't it, to actually get reports and to actually be able to feel assured. So I've got Councillor Wren to come in on that point, I think. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, well, at least once per cycle, I would say. I mean, for the last time was 7-8 years ago. We've had elections since then, 2 sets of elections since then, potentially. Yeah, at least once every cycle.
Thank you for that. Just ask the monitoring officer.
There's only small one, Chair. There's only one election.
Oh, only one. Oh, there was only been one election since the last one. So there's a proposal, but well, a suggestion about 1 per cycle, if you like. Has anybody else got any other suggestions or anything different? Not seeing anything. So, Councillor Carberry.
I think at least once per cycle, maybe twice. And if there are any significant changes, I think that should be brought to the attention of the committee. So if the Welsh Government are looking at making changes with regard to governance of schools, then I think we should perhaps have one of our meetings where we look at that.
Lovely.
And big thank you to Kim for all she does.
Thank you very much. So we've got once per cycle and we've got once or more, but specifically if there are any changes that something should come to us. Anybody else got anything? So at the moment we've got Councillor Wren with just once per cycle, but we've got once per cycle or more if there are changes, and that should come to us. Are people comfortable with that second option of once per cycle or more, particularly if there are any changes or anything significant that should come to us for any reason? So can I have somebody to move that?
I move that Teresa's proposal is accepted.
Is there a seconder for that, please? Yeah, Councillor Wren. And can I see a show of hands if that's what we're going to agree? Yeah, that's unanimous as well. So hopefully you'll be comfortable with that, Kim. We have got trust, and we would like to keep an eye and be updated on what happens. Really, that would be really good. Thank you.
No, thank you, Chair. Thank you, committee. Yes, I'll be pleased to bring back an update on the work of Wales Government as we move to update anything around school governors. Diolch.
Diolch yn fawr, thank you. And I know your item's finished now, but you're very welcome to stay with us to the end of the meeting. Don't feel that you've got to disappear. But if you have to disappear, I do understand as well. So thank you. So let's move on to item 9, which is social media protocol. If you remember, we were very keen to ensure that the social media protocol for Flintshire was updated. And we actually agreed previously that we would be looking to the Welsh Local Government Association to see what they were doing in terms of updating their social media protocol. So a bit of research has been done, and it seems that they actually aren't going to update it for at least 12 months. So the thought is that maybe it's something that we actually need to develop our own. So I'm going to hand you over to the monitoring officer to give his thoughts around this particular area. Thank you.
Don't have much to add to what you've already said, Chair. It's likely to be at least 12 months before the WLGA revise theirs, very probably for the May 27 elections, so that the new council, they're available for the guidance is available for the new council term. It was the resolution of the committee that you wanted to draft your own. When we get to the forward work programme, I know you have a suggestion, Chair, for something that you wish to look at. Given capacity, you could have one or the other, but not both, dare I suggest. So when we get to the forward work programme, Chair, if I can ask the committee which report it wants to add to the June meeting, either this or the one that you wanted to suggest.
Thank you. So what I'm suggesting then is that we actually, as we've suggested, get our own drafted and produced. But I'm going to stop on this item now, and we'll discuss further when we get to the forward work programme. But are people comfortable with that approach, given the stance of the Welsh Local Government Association, and we're not going to have a template to an updated version of the protocol, their protocol, to actually base ours on? Can I just see a show of hands if you're comfortable with that stance? Yeah, I am. Okay, so we'll look about the timing of that in the forward work programme when we get to it. Thank you. And oh, there we go. We're moving on to the forward work programme. So that's item 10, pages 75 to 78. So if you remember, this is for us to consider topics to be included on the forward work programme. And the item that I was going to mention on the forward work programme was perhaps a review of the group leaders' duty process. If you remember from items that have gone forward to the National Standards Forum to find out about what's going on across Wales, and I will give you feedback on that in a moment. Different councils across Wales undertake the group leaders' duty in different ways. To us, some are the same as us and some are different. But also, there have been discussions at the ethical liaison meeting with group leaders about the group leaders' duty. So it is something that we need to have a review of and to consider information about. Now, that could be in June, and the social media could be in June, but not both of them. So it's one or the other. So the point is to think about which one of those would be preferable in the June meeting. So I'm just going to, I can see Jill Murgatroyd's hand up, so I'm just going to go to Jill.
Thanks, Chair. My hand wasn't up in relation to that particular question. In fairness, it was up prior to that.
Oh, okay.
I can give you if you'd like me to on your question, but that wasn't why my hand was up, so I'm happy to wait until.
Yeah. Do you want to give a view on this one whilst you're speaking?
Yeah. Other than I think the view is I don't feel strongly. It's whichever takes the least amount of time to do a good job for either of those two. Because I can see we've got the planning code of practice as well, potentially, haven't we? Sort of coming as well to that meeting, and we've also got our annual report. So it really depends how long it's going to take to draft either of the other two that you've just mentioned. But I agree, I don't think we should have both, given it's a fairly packed agenda.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Anybody else got any strong feelings one way or the other? Not seeing anybody. I'm just going to talk to the monitoring officer about his thoughts in terms of capacity to put a draft social media policy together by June versus working on the group leaders' duty process review.
Both are doable, Chair. It's about in trying to help members form a view. There's a couple of ways of looking at it. We'll be talking about the annual report at the June meeting, so might it be timely to talk about the process of preparing that, talk about the same issues together. But in June, you're not going to need a revised group leaders process until the following March. So there's no urgency. Timely, but no urgency. Social media protocol could go any point, but what you felt, of course, you thought there was a need for one. And whilst it would not sit alongside the other items, and it might need quite a lot of discussion because it's going to be quite a big document, and it will be a standalone item, won't it, in the June meeting? So you will need whilst I have the time to do either by then, but not both, you will need the time to debate it properly. Planning Code of Practice is another one of these ones that's been through the doom loop, Chair. It went to Constitution, it went to the same Constitution and Democratic Services Committee in November that knocked back the Flintshire Standard. I'm trying to think whether the amendments, the tracked changes were shown. I can't remember, but that was certainly the one where it was a very clear view that because it had been changed over since it had last been reported as a Standards Committee, it had to come back to Standards Committee, and indeed to Planning Strategy Group. So hopefully there should be relatively few changes to that one, and it should be quite a light item. But yeah, and you've got the annual report. There will be an ethical complaints update, whether it's listed against that or not, because we've had the outcome of that outstanding complaint.
No, there isn't.
No, so we've had there's going to be a report back on that investigation that was being undertaken. So you will be asked to consider the findings, the Ombudsman's findings. You know, as we've done previously with investigations, there'll be a report in closed session. So, in terms of, do you have the time to do a social media protocol as well? And you can speak, Chair, if you notice. You're ready.
Well, can I speak at the same time?
You can speak at the same time. This is the changes that changes that we've made to the microphone.
I thought I was shut off.
No, you can speak as well, Chair. And if you press the little button on the left,
I can cut you off.
You can cut me off,
which I just did.
So this is it. You see,
you're not on there.
No, this is it, Chair. The changes to the microphone that support chairing in the council chamber now in council meetings. If somebody is ignoring the chair.
They can't hear. They can't hear.
They can. They can hear me. They can pick me up through that mic. Okay. I speak loudly enough that I can be picked up on several mics all at once, Chair. The chair can now cut people off if they're not listening to requests. But yes, you can speak at the same time as well.
Thank you, and I'm pleased to say I haven't had to cut anybody off. This evening, you've all been very respectful and contributed well. So those are the choices. For me, I'm minded to suggest the social media protocol. We start working on it and get it in because it was an item. It was an area that we felt strongly about. And I seem to remember that originally we'd looked at when ours was last updated, but also there were things coming from the Ombudsman for Wales reports and the Adjudication Panel for Wales about misuse of social media being a big area in terms of complaints as well. So let's do a vote on it. So how many for social media to go into June, please? So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4. It's the social media going into June. So the group leader's duty will go into the next meeting we have after that, which I'm believing will be September. Yeah. So thank you for that. David Davis, did you want to come in? Sorry, was that before I did the vote?
Oh, sorry, Chair. Again, it's my computer's playing.
Okay. No
Every
problem.
time I stick my hand up manually, the electronic hand also appears. So
no problem. I just didn't want to miss you if it was a real hand. So thank you very much. Jill Murgatroyd, did you want to come in? Yes, you had another point that I didn't let you speak about before. Thank you, Jill.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, just a couple of other thoughts. On page 77, it's really helpful that we've got the rolling review of codes and protocols. And I'm just wondering if for our next meeting, this could be updated for the next round so we could have a look at the proposals. I'm sure we could all sort of work it out ourselves, but it would just be really helpful. So that's the first thing.
Jill, just so you know, I asked the same question.
Okay, fine, thank you. Great minds think alike.
Absolutely, and there are no more reviews needed in this council term. So what's there is what there is, apart from the fact that the planning code of practice, of course, has pushed on into 2026, hasn't it? Which is on the programme. But thank you for asking on that one.
And the second and final point, clearly our next meeting, if we go to, I don't know what page number it is, it's 76, isn't it? The second page. Our next meeting, the 1st of June, is, well, two questions actually about that. On the council's website, it shows that the next meeting, the 1st of June, is a discretionary one. So that's just one question. So whether it's the one at the end of June, because on the council's website, it shows, I think it was the 29th of June as being the regular one that we have, if that makes sense. So whichever it is, just needs to be either amended on the council's website or on this work plan, whichever it is. But the second point is, I just did a quick tally up. I'm very mindful that if the next year's worth is going to be sort of put onto this for our next meeting, whether it's either the 1st or 29th of June, I'm very mindful that all the independent members will be, their terms of office are coming to an end at some point next year, as is also the Town and Community Council. There's two independent members' terms of office come to an end next March, one in July and two in December of next year. And then, as I mentioned, the Town and Community Council representative in May of next year. So that basically means all of us, apart from the elected members, who, and obviously there's new elections, aren't there, next May. So bearing that in mind, I don't know whether we need to factor anything into all of this when we're developing the plans for next year. From a succession planning point of view and a recruitment point of view, because everyone at some point will be replaced next year. So it's just making sure we've got all our ducks in a row, really, from succession planning.
Okay, thanks for bringing that up. On your first point, thanks for noticing. You're quite right. It's the 29th of June, isn't it? So it's correct on the council website, but it's not correct on our forward work programme. I think that's right, isn't it?
The council website is done by the team that know what they're doing. The forward work me.
Okay, so I'm not saying anything. So 29th of June. On the second point, I'm going to refer us to the monitoring officer just to confirm and clarify. And you are quite right. If there are areas in terms of succession planning to be done, we need to actually be putting that in the forward work programme. But I'll just pass you to the monitoring officer, who can just clarify on the who, when and what. Here we go.
So, Chair, I'm just trying to find my my little list with all the dates on, but my recollection, Chair, is that whilst we might have first terms of office coming to an end fairly soon, we don't have any second terms of office coming to an end until the end of December 27, and that's your own. Your second and final term of office comes to an end. Then Mark is the next one. He's doing his second term of office now, but that was just renewed in January, so that's good for a while yet. And the other independent members have the remainder of their first terms of office, and then potentially, if they're interested, and if council wishes to appoint them, the whole of their second term ahead of them.
Jill, did you want to come in on that?
Thanks. I've got a slightly different understanding because I've got a document from yourself, Gareth, when you've listed all of the terms of office and when they all come to an end. that you've sent to all of us, actually. It was, I can forward it back to you, but it was sent in April of last year. And specifically, it's showing when we're all due to retire as opposed to second terms of office. So I can forward it back to you if it's helpful, Gareth. But specifically, it shows that, for example, I finish in, there were a couple of us that were appointed just for 1 6-year term. Most of us were, actually. There's a couple of exceptions, but I can send the list back to you, Gareth, if it's helpful for planning purposes. But you very helpfully sent it to us at the end of April last year.
Okay, just pass you over to the monitoring officer.
If Jill looks at that, and if she looks at Julia's term of office, your own term of office, Chair, you will see that it says reappointed for a further 5 years at FCC meeting on the 27th of September. So that marks the start, right, the Chair's second term. For the other people, where it says that they have been appointed and that they retire, you will see that that is their first term only. So for your case, appointed 1st of April 2021 for 6 years, retires the 31st of March 2027. That's only one term of office. There is no reference there to a second term of office because you haven't yet been appointed to or started your second term of office. Now, you are eligible to serve a second term of office if you wish, and if council wishes to reappoint you. So there are two big ifs there.
Thank you. In that case, I'd completely misunderstood it from our previous communications and that particular one. My understanding was that it was for this council, it was 1 term only of 6 years rather than one lot of, say, 4 years and then the opportunity. So apologies, I've obviously misunderstood it, in which case my comment about succession planning you can ignore, because I thought most of us would be stepping down next year. So apologies, I've obviously misunderstood.
Chair, members are appointed 1 term at a time. You can be appointed for a maximum of 2, but you are appointed 1 term at a time. And at the end of your first term of office, you will be asked whether you wish to stand again. And I will then consult with group leaders and take a view about putting that up, and whether what I would hate to do is put up somebody who is not going to be reappointed. I just think that's embarrassing in public. So I will take soundings. We will, if the majority of group leaders or the majority of group leaders representing the majority of councillors support you, then your name will go forward for reappointment. If the majority of councillors the group leaders representing the majority of councillors have reservations about reappointment, then there will be a further conversation. What I wouldn't want to do is go into a full council meeting knowing that, you know, all of the group leaders have said, no way, we're not having that person again, because I just think it's embarrassing. We do it in public because you have to do that kind of appointment in public. Not appropriate to appoint somebody responsible for transparency and standards behind closed doors. But equally, we don't want to embarrass anybody by, you know, holding you up to some sort of, it'd just be humiliating in my view. Others might not take that view. Maybe I'm being oversensitive, but that's my view. And so that's my practice, Chair.
Thank you. Thanks for that explanation. Jill, thanks for asking that question, because if you weren't sure about it, I'm sure there will be others that weren't quite clear about it as well. So it's good to clarify. Thank you very much. So what we do need, though, Jill is quite right, we'll need the boxes going forward from June 26, starting to be populated for 3 or 4 meetings after that, won't we? Just to give us an idea of what we're doing.
We approved the schedule of meetings at the annual meeting. We don't have the schedule of meetings yet.
Right. So once the annual meeting is May.
So then we'll be at the 29th of June meeting. We'll be able to give you your schedule.
Lovely.
It is in reality, given the pattern that we follow, it is in reality going to be the same. It's going to be January, March, May, then a July, November, and then back to January again, because you meet every 2 months.
Lovely, thank you. So we'll look forward to receiving that. So are we comfortable then with, we've said we're comfortable with social media going on to the June meeting. We've got the other areas there, and we've added the ethical complaints update in the June meeting as well, haven't we? Which we discussed before. Is there anything else for the June meeting? No. So can I see a show of hands if you're comfortable then with that programme going forward of what we've got? Yeah. Okay. Thank you. Thank you. So that's our forward work programme. So now we move on to 2 items that we have for information. First of all, we've got feedback from the ethical liaison meeting, which the monitoring officer is going to feed back. This is the meeting between myself and Mark Morgan, the deputy chair, and the group leaders, which we try and do at least every 6 months or more if necessary, depending on what's going on. So I'll hand you over to the monitoring officer just to give you a bit of feedback on what we've been discussing and the progress that we've made so far. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Now, those discussions obviously take place in confidence, so some of this is going to be quite heavily summarised. Talked about the follow-up to the WLGA work that took place last year. I think it was October it began. The work at Flint, everybody calls it, the meetings we had at Flint Mounting, because everybody remembers the venue. So those meetings, because they were split in 2, we didn't bring closure at the end of those meetings, and everybody said the meetings really liked the process, but said the meetings finished half an hour too soon, and that half an hour should have been used to draft an action plan. But we had 2 different meetings, so we couldn't agree a single action plan. So we've agreed to pull together a working group to draw up the action plan and to look at how it can take things forward. We've done terms of reference to the working group. Mark is going to chair it. We've got nominees from 4 of the groups, and we have 4 chief officers, so that we have an overall working group of 9, which is a nice manageable number. And we've got meetings set in the diary for March and going on from there, I think. So it's taken a little while to get to this point, but that is actually going to make some progress. And interestingly, in relation to that, a couple of the groups agreed to stand back because we wanted to have even numbers of elected councillors and officers. If we had all 6 groups on there, we'd have to have a working group of 13. And leaving one side superstitions around the number, we just thought that was too large. So some groups actually said, well, we'll stand back and let others take the place, which I thought was very responsible and quite positive in that regard. We talked about monitoring officer capacity, and I'll be drafting in somebody to help, so you may see a face in future to help provide more assistance or further assistance over and above that which is provided by Matt. And so you might see somebody else coming to committees to help present reports or prepare reports on my behalf. And then we got down to the nub of a couple of big issues. Chair, following some comments made at when the Standards Committee annual report was approved in December last year, you had asked that we put an item on the agenda about the way the Standards Committee works to give group leaders a chance to feedback. And so you, rather than making the comments in council when you're not present, an opportunity to get those issues out and talk about those issues and put them on the table and air them. We did indeed give them a good thrashing. We talked about membership of the Standards Committee and the fact that membership of the Standards Committee is not politically balanced. We've got 3 councillors, so clearly not all groups can be represented. As councillors, you are elected to serve for 4 years as a term of office. So, Councillor Wren, your term is up in May. I think you've heard me say that before. So you were appointed in May 22, so your 4-year term comes to an end in May. You could be reappointed again if they wish. Councillor Hodge was appointed after Councillor, because he stepped in after Councillor Parker, so his term of office isn't up for a while. But it's possible, because of shifting alliances, shall I put it, within the council, that we have, there was discussion about whether there are people who represent the administration and people who are outside of the administration. Now, when people were appointed, some were in, some were out. It's changed since then. In theory, the reason for appointing people for 4 years to the Standards Committee is so that you are above politics in that sense, and that the committee, the membership of the committee, doesn't change in order or isn't changed rather in order to gain perceived political advantage, thereby removing you, making you at least one step removed from that political process. But where we get to with that in May remains to be seen. But we had that debate anyway about about the role of the committee, and about the fact, of course, that the committee doesn't choose who serves on it. Full council makes all the appointments to committee, not the committee itself. So there were some criticisms of the committee, which I think, Chair, without breaching any confidence, it's fair to say you thought were unfounded, because you get what you're given, and to criticise you then when it wasn't you that wasn't nominated the councillors is a little unfair, or might be perceived to be unfair. So that was the principal area of discussion there. That kind of morphed into a little bit about how we do the annual report, and some discussions that come up at the National Forum about the involvement of elected members in the review process, and whether that makes that process of reporting on group leaders a politicised process, but also whether group leaders themselves can and should be on the Standards Committee. There's nothing in the regs preventing it, but the regs were drafted before the group leader's duty was invented. Clearly, when we do get to do the annual report, Councillor Hodge is now a group leader. He wasn't at the point when he was nominated to the committee, but has since become a group leader. He clearly can't do his own assessment. He can't both be assessed and vote on his own assessment. I think there's probably a very strong case for arguing that he shouldn't assess any other group leader either, because he's part of that cohort, and therefore should be stepping back from this in order to ensure that the process is visibly seen to have independence. That is not making any criticism of Councillor Hodge and his ability to be independent. It's so that there can be no possibility of tainting the process. If we're not going to allow a group leader to participate, the question, as I say, then comes up, well, should you actually have elected members in the process, and do you want to run it that way this year? So I think that probably, very briefly, without breaching any confidences and without attributing any comments apart from your own, Chair, I think that covers what we discussed, unless there's anything that you or Mark wish to add or think that I've missed.
No, I think you have covered that, and just to reiterate, the reason the feedback is quite generic and not specific is because that's the terms of the liaison group, that we can have full, open and frank discussions without sharing every single detail of the discussions, and we want the group leaders to have confidence in that's the way that we operate it. So thank you for that. I don't know if Mark's got anything that, no, nothing else to add. So it does raise the question for us to actually consider the point about that we have now got a group leader actually on the Standards Committee. It's not his fault, it's just the way it's happened. He wasn't a group leader when he first came to us. And quite rightly, as is pointed out by the monitoring officer, it wouldn't be appropriate for him to take part in the group leader process of judging other group leaders or being involved with it with his own either. But I am going to come on to the feedback from the National Standards Forum, but there were lots of discussions at that forum across Wales about the whole issue of group leaders on standards committees per se, and of all the people that responded there at that forum, none of those committees have group leaders on the Standards Committee. And that there are other councils where the elected members don't participate in the group leaders process, duty process at all. So there are two things. There's the having group leaders on a standards committee is the one area, and the other area is not using or using elected members to be part of that group leader duty process. So I just wanted to raise that with yourselves, really, to just gauge your thoughts. So if I start with the one about having group leaders on the standards committee, as was pointed out by the monitoring officer, there's no legislation or anything that says to us they can't be on a standards committee. However, right across Wales, there are quite a few that the ones that actually made a comment at the forum don't have group leaders on their standards committee. So just thought I'd throw it out to yourselves as members of the standards committee for your thoughts on having group leaders on the standards committees, or when any of our elected members perhaps would become a group leader. What do you feel the process should be? I can tell you that when I was chair of the standards committee in Denbighshire, we had a member of our standards committee that did become a group leader, and without us saying anything, he actually came to us and he said, I'm actually going to resign from the standards committee because I don't feel it's appropriate for me to be a standards committee member being a group leader. So I'm going to give up my place, and another person was then selected. So that wasn't something that we as a standards committee asked this particular person to do. That was his thought, and that's how he felt in terms of making sure things were open and transparent. So can I open it up to see what people feel about group leaders being on the Flintshire County Council Standards Committee? Anybody got any comments or observations?
And Chair, I think it's worth pointing out that this is so that when we come to have the debate in May, if the view of the committee is to say, well, actually, no disrespect to Ian, we don't want to have a standards committee, we don't want to have a group leader on the standards committee, we might need to appoint two. Consider reappointing Councillor Wren or replacing him, but also actually consider appointing somebody other than Councillor Hodge, because if it's your view that you don't want a chair and a group leader on the committee, and council agrees with you, then they can make that decision there and then, and they can say, well, actually, yes, we would like to replace Councillor Hodge, and we'd like to appoint one or two new people to the committee, and or reappoint Councillor Wren. It's just so that we've got, because that's a discussion we're going to have in May, and there isn't another committee before.
And I'd like to reiterate, it's not to do with the person, it's nothing to do with Councillor Wren, because Councillor Wren has been a very active sorry, Councillor Hodge, beg your pardon, Councillor Wren. Councillor Hodge has been a very active member of our committee and contributed fully. So it's about the position, isn't it? It's not about the person. Sorry, Councillor Wren, would you like to come in?
Yes, please. My opinion about group leaders being on the standards committee is that to me is less important than the political balance of the elected members on the standards committee. When we started 4 years ago, it was one member of the independent group, one member of the Labour group, and then one member of the Liberal Dems. And over time, that has changed. Yeah, that meeting that was referred to previously, some people aren't happy about that, but it's the elected members that appoint, it's Flintshire County Council as a whole that appoint the members of the Standards Committee, and that's who they appointed. So there we go. I'll come back to the next point later when you go over it, because that's it with leaders. I've got no problem with it. It's just the political representation.
Thank you for that. And the other thing I suppose to mention as well, that even if there are people that are selected by the county council to be the representatives on the standards committee, it can happen that they can actually change groups or become independent as well. So even if there's a feel that people are happy with the political balance. The council have selected these and this fulfills one thing. It doesn't mean that it might not become another thing, because people swap groups, don't they, as well? So I thought I'd just say that in passing as well. Thank you very much. Anybody else got any comments? David Davis.
I'm a little uneasy about a party leader being a member of the standards, only because of perceptions, and there may be a perception that a party leader might have some influence on the standards committee, and therefore would perhaps have a slightly unfair advantage over the other political leaders. So I do have reservations. Thank you.
Thank you for that opinion. I will be coming to all of you to ask, so I don't know if anybody else wants to come in. Councillor Carberry, Teresa, thank you.
Thank you, Chair. I actually share David's reservations about the issue. You know, in the interest of transparency, I think it should not be a group leader that's on standards, because it might perceive that they've got an advantage. Mm-hmm. It's you know, it could be just a perception, but perception is everything.
Thank you. That's really useful. Thank you very much. And Jill Murgatroyd.
Yes, I agree wholeheartedly with what Councillor Carberry said, and David Davis as well. It's all about perceptions. It's not about the ability of the individual people, I hasten to add, at all on this committee, but about perceptions. So I would support what they've both said. Thank you. I'm going to continue with the people on screen. Jacqueline Guest, have you got a preference either way?
No, I agree with all the comments that have been made about a group leader. I don't think they should be on the standards committee. My only question would be is if they didn't choose to resign, what would happen then?
Thank you. I'll ask the monitoring officer to respond on that one, please.
Well, we have the item at the annual meeting in May about appointments to the committee.
So the membership would run until May, and then it would come to the annual meeting. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. Obviously, we haven't had an opportunity to discuss this with Councillor Hodge because he's not here.
No.
So I don't want to get too much into the ins and outs of what might happen in relation to that, because we don't know.
And we haven't all come to that conclusion yet at the moment, have we? Anyway, so I think she puts her glasses on. I think everybody on the screen has had an opportunity on to say something on this one. So I'm going into the room. I'm going to Councillor Ros Griffiths then.
Yeah, I feel uneasy too. I think if the perception is that a group leader can influence the standards committee, I don't think for 1 minute that he would. And I mean, as I say, it's the position, not the person. But I think probably from his own point of view, he might feel easier in his mind to resign at the appropriate time, so that he can't be accused of influencing the standards committee in any way whatsoever. I mean, he is a good member of the standards committee, but I do think that as a group leader, I don't think it's appropriate. Any group leader should be on standards. It should be completely separate from the council that way.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that opinion. Thank you. Mark Morgan.
Thank you, Chair. I concur with everything that's been said, and it's fair to say that I held that view quite some time ago when we had a previous group leader as part of the committee.
Yes.
And then indeed on to the next one, if you don't mind. In terms of the meetings, I think that should be held entirely by the independent members. Sorry.
So just by the meetings, you mean when we have the group leader
yes.
One-to-one meetings, if that's the process we're going to do?
To inform the annual report, I think that should be 3 of the 5 independents, personally. Thank you.
Thank you. So first of all, just to clarify with the monitoring officer then, we've obviously got the feel of the whole of the standards committee, apart from Councillor Wren, who just to check, Councillor Wren, you weren't one way or the other on the whether a group leader should be on standards or not, were you?
No, people do keep repeating perception and not performance. Performance is extremely important, but I take everyone's arguments on board.
Thank you. So the majority feel of the committee is that group leaders shouldn't actually be on standards committee. So I'm going to defer to the monitoring officers then to put that forward through the appropriate process, so that going forward, when members are being selected by the council, they're aware that that's one of the areas that we've agreed as a standards committee, and that we have looked at how things work across Wales as well to see what happens, and also discussed it clearly, and to make sure that everybody's quite clear that it's not about Councillor Hodge, but it's about the position of a group leader on the standards committee, because it will be, Councillor Hodge has really worked hard for us and worked well with us. So I think that's really important. So I'll leave that with the monitoring officer to action that for us, please, if you would. So on the second point then, so sorry, is that on the same point, Councillor Carver?
No, it's actually on the second point.
Okay, so I was just going to say then, before you come in, let's move to the second point, because we've had a couple of opinion on that so far. So this is when we actually do the one-to-one meetings. We have the paperwork coming from the group leaders, and then we look at it, and then we have one-to-one meetings to actually have an opportunity to discuss that, and for them to discuss with us how they fulfilled their duty over the previous 12 months, whether the elected representatives that are on the standards committee take part in that process or not. So that's what we're talking about now. So would you like to come in, Councillor Carberry?
Thank you, Chair. I actually agree with Mark on this. It's back to perception again. I can understand that if there are elected members on there, they, people might think they're swaying what is discussed or written. So I would be quite happy as an elected member not to be part of that process in the interest of fairness and transparency.
Thank you very much. And anybody else? Councillor Wren.
Yeah, I just find it quite uncomfortable that as an elected member, I'm asked to judge the performance of the opposition, shall we say, or the other way around, support my own leader. Yeah, I don't think it should be left to elected members to do that.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. So without going around the rest of the independent members, can I see a show of hands if you agree that going forward we should not have the elected members as part of the group leader duty process of when we actually do the one-to-one process with group leaders, but that they would be involved with helping us put the information we bring back into the annual report. So can I see a show of hands if you agree with that? So, yeah, so we've got unanimous on that one as well. Thank you. So I think we've covered off item 11. Thank you very much. Unless there's anything else from the monitoring officer. I'm very aware of time. I just need to check with the monitoring officer. We do need to be out of the building by
8 o'clock.
8 o'clock.
I have circulated the notes, Chair.
Okay. So in terms of the feedback on the National Standards Forum, the notes have been circulated to you from the monitoring officer. What I particularly would point out is for you to have a look at the areas to do with the local resolution protocol that's being worked on. So I would have a look at that, but particularly you'll see the duty to promote and maintain standards. It gives you some of the examples across Wales of what's happening. Everybody sees that duty is very supportive and a very useful process. So in some authorities, councillors meet with Standards Committee members after receiving reports, and summaries are incorporated into annual reporting. In other authorities, they require quarterly or annual reports from group leaders, sometimes discussed collectively rather than through one-to-one meetings. Several chairs describe meeting group leaders individually at key points in the year and presenting updates or annual reports at full councils or AGMs. So there's a whole section about that. And what I would do is direct you to, if you could, when it comes onto our forward work programme and we start to discuss the group leader process, to use that information to have a think about our process going forward, not for this cycle, but for next year's cycle. And also, we've also started to have conversations, and will have conversations again with group leaders about their thoughts as well, because it needs to be a process that works for both sides, isn't it? So I would suggest that if you get the opportunity to have a think about that, have a look at it, ready for that piece of work when we come to it. Also, you'll see that there was a report back from Michelle Morris, the Public Services Ombudsman for Wales. And again, you have a good look at that. There's some statistics about where we're at in terms of her work and recent cases of interest. Our next meeting of the forum is going to be on June the 29th. So again, if you've got any thoughts going forward about any areas for the agenda for the 29th, it would be really good if you could give those suggestions, send them to the monitoring officer, because the monitoring officers group will also be discussing the agenda, potential agenda going forward. So I'm not going to go into any more detail about that because you have got those notes, and I'm sorry we ran out of time, but I think we've had some really good and comprehensive discussions and gone through things thoroughly this evening. So I'd like to thank you all for your time tonight, and to remind you that the next meeting, there's a penciled in one for next month if we have any dispensations coming in. However, as Jill pointed out, the next full meeting will be on June the 29th. So can I thank all the officers who've supported us this evening? Thank you all for your attendance, and look forward to seeing you in June, unless I see you before because of a dispensations request or requests. So diolch yn fawr iawn, thank you very much. Enjoy the rest of your evening. Take care. Thank you. Bye-bye.